might be wherever you are. Welcome back to another enthralling 45 show. Good morning, Fuel. Glad that you're here. Glad everybody else is here. Been a couple weeks since we've been on, and Miss Shannon is busy today. She's out and won't be hanging out with us, which is kind of a bummer, but that's okay. So anyway, you just get me today. And so because it's just me, we're going to do some weird things. I got an interesting ping yesterday about some stuff that we had written here on this show years ago, probably, to delete tenants. Because, of course, we all know we have plenty of tenants that just lay around and aren't being used. And so the thought was, well, somebody actually is trying to use it, and they need to delete a tenant that has 3 million users on it. So this person said, hey, I tried to use the thing, and it just hung and sat there for a while. So anyone who remembers, Christos and I worked on that. This was a while ago. It's probably at least a year ago. A tenant deleter. So I'm going to try to update that today to maybe be like a .NET like background hosted hosted tasks inside of the console app or something. Because I'm thinking with 3 million users, and of course we're still talking about going through graph and throttling and everything else. I have a feeling that's going to be it might be a little bit too much for graph all at once. So I'll be curious to see. What's going on. So anyway, but we'll get into that shortly. It's kind of strange without having a companion, a co-host. Not sure I like doing this alone. Other than that, same old. Internet went out today, and oddly enough, the internet went out yesterday at exactly the same time. It's like 10:48 a.m. Internet goes out. I have to restart the whole smack to come back. I just started doing this the last couple of days. I don't really know what it is. I hope it's not permanent. But we'll just have to wait and see where it takes us. So yeah. So of course, if you've been with us the last few weeks, we still have a few other things coming up. For example, it's time to migrate off of ADFS. So if you're using ADFS today, it's time to start thinking about how to not use ADFS tomorrow. Not there's anything wrong with it, but it's sort of a matter of, we told you for a long time that you needed to do it. You don't need to do it anymore. It's really sort of where we are. So there's so many new features, so many new things that are a part of Azure AD authentication sort of straight up that, it's just one of those things that you don't really need to stop doing. So, in fact, I've got a link here. We'll put it up here, and it's got a whole sort of website all about what that migration looks like. So you can check this out. Let's see, get this up here. So you can check that out. aka.ms whack ADFS to Azure AD. I give you info on how to get rid of that. So we had our ADFS.me project. We're gonna pick that up in a couple weeks. Mostly because there's some other stuff that's happening here that other teams are working on, etc. And our little ADFS app, ADFS.me, it's going to take you to some of those resources that these folks are working on. So I don't really want to build that today and have it take you somewhere that's maybe not that great yet. So the alternative is we wait until those resources are ready, and then we finish our ADFS.me. But in the interim, we do have a couple other things. We've got next week, we've got our friend, we have a hacker friend coming on who's going to help us with our ADFS lab in a box, Connect Health lab in a box, all sorts of fun stuff. An Azure ARM template that will build you an entire ADFS lab environment, including things like Connect Health. We're going to get that updated, ready to go. One of our friends here, David, has built some automation around automatically publishing some ADFS apps so that the top 20, SaaS apps that people use, Salesforce, all sorts of stuff, we'll get all that sort of pushed into your ADFS. So we're going to be catching up on that next week. We'll probably go back to our ADFS.me a couple weeks from there. We got some other things going on with PIM, our PIM portal, big red PIM portal button. We still got that kind of waiting in the wings, waiting for us to get wrapped up on it. But yeah, so we're gonna get close. We're gonna get there. So anyway, hope everybody's doing all right. Happy time zone. Be sure you join the Discord. More people are going out there now and getting a little bit more activity out there. So be sure to join and tell your friends. Come hang out with us on Discord. So, anyways, let's get into what we gotta look at. Let's get into what we're going to try to look at today. All right. So this Mac thing, at least this is weird. It is a strange sort of moves my taskbar thing. So if you were with us in the past, some of the original heads who were hanging with us, I know, Fuel. It's just not. It's not fair, and Krista's not being here makes it. It's just not the same. And Shannon's not here either. Shannon's she's on vacation doing some family stuff, which is great for her, but she's gone. So it's just not. It's just really kind of awkward. So it's just me and all of you. So but we'll make do. We'll make it work. So anyone who's familiar with Azure AD knows that if you want to go delete a tenant, it's a little bit involved. You can't just go in and delete one. That's why there's so many that are just sort of hanging out there. And that's why when you go to, say, your organizations list, you may be a member of so many. I did both. Yeah, I got tired of my other one, and because people kept tagging the old one, I was like, I'll just switch them back. So I just took my old Twitter back. So I'm still JPDA on Twitch though, but yeah. So we're just catching up on what we're doing. I got a call yesterday, and someone's looking at this code, which is 13 months old now, and they said, "Hey, I'm trying to use this on a tenant with 3 million users, and I can't do that." So, single tenant deleter. Yeah, see? So we've got our tenant deleter, and in fact, we even made issues for all the things that we needed to do in order to get one of these deleted. Because what's fascinating about this is that if we were to try to, like, if we go to, say, I'm going to go to an Azure AD tenant here. So let's see, AD portal, azure.com. Also, I got some strange, STD may not be the worst one, but I mean, it could be worse. I mean, if you've got way too many, tenants, like, I guess you're right. I should be using intra.microsoft.com. Is that it? Yeah. If it looks a little strange, it's also because we have a lot of these like internal tools, right? And the internal tools, the font listed in the CSS is quite literally like Sego UI or however you say it. And that's not in Safari on a Mac. It just won't use those. It won't use user installed fonts. I get some sort of privacy thing. So you can either turn off tracking protection, or you can not use user installed fonts. And the problem is everything would show up in times, which was really ugly and annoying. And so I wrote a really small CSS, because Safari will let you use space CSS. It was sort of a really small one that just said, basically, hey, anytime you see Sego UI, just replace it with the Apple system font. So now all of my Microsoft portals show up a little differently. But to be honest, I actually quite like it because it feels more like a native sort of thing, right? I mean, nothing against like Microsoft design. Of course, it looks fine. But I kind of feel like, it's not too bad. I feel like it looks pretty good, and it feels more like something that's sort of native here on the box. So, You should not want for other fonts. Exactly. Thank you, Fuel. It's exactly how I feel. So anyway, I don't think I really want to use this one because this one is work. Even though it doesn't really matter. But so here's one that we'll switch to. I wish I could skip this, but I've got a bad feeling it's not going to let me skip it. So I'm going to have to go do an MFA on the telephone or whatever. Such is life. So if we were to go, let's see, Authenticator. I think it's gonna make me like put in my telephone number and all this stuff, which is kind of silly, but whatever. If we were to look at the things that are required for us to, oh my God, what is this thing doing? This is so obnoxious. If we were to look at the things we have to delete to get rid of an Azure AD tenant, like we have to actively go in and delete all the users, delete all the applications, delete all the service principals or enterprise apps. We've got to delete all the like user flows in a B2C tenant. We've got to delete like the LinkedIn connector. Like there's all sorts of stuff, and there's a whole list of them. When you try to go delete one, and it's going to say, "Hey, like you still got all the." Okay, I don't know what the hell things do once I forget it. A whole list of things, Azure AD domain services, if you're using that in Azure, all these things have to be deleted in order for you to actually delete the tenant. And on the one hand, it's sort of like, well, what's the advantage of even deleting one? And I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I guess like you want to clean stuff up, or like in the case of the friend here at work who's like, hey, I've got 3 million users, we got to get rid of it. Like, okay, like I get it. Like, well, we want to get rid of it. But getting rid of it is just such a pain that we want to make it a little easier. GDPR and the other regulation is the reason. Oh, I see. Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. It's a good point, Bull. I didn't think about that. So if you got data protection, yeah, right to be forgotten, all those sorts of things. If you're under, or if your business is subject to those regulations, yeah, for sure. To be able to go into, I guess I'm thinking like if I'm running some service and you came to me and said, hey, I want to be deleted, I can delete you and anything, any data adjacent to you without necessarily deleting the entire tenant. But depending on how you've designed your services and how you've designed your businesses and everything else, I guess there's a position you could be in where you say, look, like we're going to wipe out this whole tenant because we don't own this business anymore. It was a test. It was a dev thing. It was a temporary one. We created a new tenant just for one customer, and then we migrated them to something else. I guess there are all sorts of reasons why you'd want to get rid of them. So that's what we're going to look at. So I'm going to go over to in fact, I'll use a browser that has profiles in it, so I think it'll be a little bit easier just for the sake of simplicity. I'm going to come over to this one, which is just a test, sort of a test one we use for various things. And let's go to the Azure portal. I'm going to try to delete this. We're going to delete, of course, we're not going to delete this. But we're going to see what's required for us to delete one. So here's our Azure AD. We've got our, let's see, I think it's under properties now, or maybe it's moved. I think it might actually be, maybe it's managed tenants. I think that's where it is. So let's take something like, say, this one, right? And we're going to try to, now this is the tenant that we're in. We're going to try to delete it, right? Now, see, I don't have access because I'm not even a global admin, so I can't even do this on this one. And the reason I'm not a global admin is because this is a PIMmed account. So I've written a neat little tool here called Ascend, which we're going to run. And that essentially is my PIM elevation. So this is going to go, if I've got any kind of remote tokens laying around here that can go do this, this will connect up to Graph, get me and submit my PIM elevation request so that I can be a global administrator. This is what we're ultimately going to connect to a big red button here on my desk, so that if I forget to do this again, we can just slam, hit the big red button, and away we go. Now I'm not going to be an admin here for a few seconds, so I'm going to go over to another one just for the sake of simplicity. So let's go over Let's go over here to Azure AD. I'll go over here to my directory, manage our tenants. Let's pick this one. I'm going to try to delete it. And now we're going to get a big long list of all the stuff that we'd have to do in order to delete this. So we can't delete it because we got users. We got LinkedIn applications. We've got, hey, BSD guy, what's going on? What's this money? Is that $1? Is that a hand with money? Or is that a wallet with money coming out? The emoji's so tiny and I am so old that I can't even see anymore. So we got to delete our app registrations, enterprise apps, license-based subscriptions, Azure subscriptions, free subscriptions. I don't even know what free subscriptions are. I guess like cheap Power BI or whatever. Domain services, MFA, identity providers, user flows. Of course, these are external identities and B2C sort of specific. But if you had MFA, certain MFA things configured, if you had domain services, all this stuff has to go. It's all got to go. And you come over here and you do like a delete all users, and it's like, what am I going to come over here and like check a box? Like if I got 3 billion of these, there's no way I can do this, right? Hence the tool. So, there's a bulk delete. Now that's an interesting one. I actually haven't looked at this one yet. So I wonder what happens if we were to do the bulk delete. I wonder what the most is. Interesting. So there's a CSV template. I wonder. This might completely obsolete. This might completely make obsolete this entire stream, which would be fantastic because that means we've done things correctly. It is sort of like an RMRF, although it's more of an RMRF for not for tenants, but for data in the tenants. We'll say. I suppose we could make our app take multiple tenants as an input. But you give me another idea too, which is, I don't know if you remember, but years ago, PowerShell, you could have you could essentially like navigate certain trees as if they were a file system, even if they weren't. So it's things like the registry, things like the environment variables, right? Like you treat, like PowerShell could treat them like a drive, even though they weren't actually a drive. So in PowerShell, I don't even know if I can do this here because this is PowerShell core, but it was something like you do like a CD and then it was something like env, I think. Yeah, so now like your thing is env. Like that's your root. And if you like ls into that, you get all of your like environment variables. So I'm wondering if there is a way, like I wonder if I have to do like what's interesting is an ls gives me the actual folders, whereas a dir gives me the. Anyway, but I wonder if you could make an Azure AD, like I don't even know what this is called. What would you call this? A head, a protocol handler for PowerShell? Like what is that? Because if we could make one of those for Azure AD, that would be super cool. I think because you could treat it just like any other thing. Yeah, provider something. That's about the best I could think too. But let's see, PowerShell path provider maybe? I don't know. So internal, let's see, navigation. A navigation provider. Oh, I bet that's it. SQL tables as files? Absolutely. All those things. So oh my God, Access DB sample provider. Windows Vista and .NET Framework 3.0. Somehow I feel like we're very far away from it's called a navigation commandlet provider, I'm guessing. That's pretty neat, not gonna lie. We may have to go and look at this. So if we were to do PowerShell core navigation provider, because that's ultimately what it is, right? Because this is Windows PowerShell. We don't want that. A navigation provider. This does not say Windows PowerShell. So, an item provider. Oh, they're different providers. I see. Interesting. But these all say Windows PowerShell. I don't want Windows PowerShell. I want PowerShell Core. Or whatever, when PowerShell that works other places is. I don't know what you call that. Oh, this is the legacy PowerShell SDK. Okay, developing modern modules. A command line predictor. No, I don't want that. Maybe you can't do it anymore. That's too bad. Hmm. This is the same one as the other one, just in a different doc. That's why I have one doc that outlines something when you could have seven. I think it is old info. PowerShell core providers, we'll say. PowerShell providers are .NET framework-based programs that make data in a specialized data store available in PowerShell. Now, this is some dude's blog, so there's no telling like how modern or up to date that is. But the E and V one definitely works on this machine because it's PowerShell core, so it definitely works on this because this is Mac. So, oh yeah, this is completely useless. This is like auto stuff. So, a PS provider. I mean, I don't know. It's looking. That kind of looks like what it might be. Is it maybe a PS drive? Viewing provider data, moving through hierarchical data, provider home. How do I get PS provider here? What do we have? Alias, environment, file system, function, and variable. So also what I want to do is create a PS provider. Create a PS provider. Because imagine if you could just go to your PS provider and be like, RM-RF, for example. Just like what Fuel said. Like if you could be like, AAD or CD users and then, RM-RF star, bam, and all of them are gone. I think that'd be pretty slick. I'd be down for that. I'd be down to build one of those. There's a book. So, but yeah, this doesn't. I don't know. Maybe I'll do this later because I gotta read up about this and figure out what the scoop is. I mean, if we write our code the right way for doing the actual deletions, it should be fairly straightforward. I mean, this is the excitement. This is the excitement of this, though, Fuel. One catastrophe a few keystrokes away. My entire existence at this company it can be summed up by just that, right? So, let's see here. Automated everything. I mean, I'm totally down for that. I really think that might be the ticket, right? Like we want to automate everything, obviously. So anyway, I'm digressing, I guess, a little bit. I want to be able to put all your beautiful, wonderful comments up here on the screen. So I'm trying to get that sorted out. So, you just have to live with me for a second. So wow, this stuff's really, some of the stuff that's in here is extremely old. So like Fuel says, we're one sort of catastrophe away. I mean, I think that's, that's the story of life, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So let me see if I can't I'm gonna try to show your comment here if I can remember how to do this. It's been a very long time. So you all tell me if Fuel's message shows up. Doesn't look like it is. So anyway, yeah. I mean, elevating PIM first. Sure, you can elevate PIM. I mean, we've got a script to elevate PIM. I mean, what if you can create applications that way? And here's the other thing, right? That's right. Guns don't shoot me in the foot. I shoot myself in the foot. Whatever's available at hand. What if you wanted to back up an entire Azure AD? What if you wanted to clone an Azure AD? You are syncing Azure AD from one to another. I mean, how cool would that be? You could do the entirety of the whole, like you could do everything you have to do in the portal. You could just do it through, well, I guess if you do it through Graph, you can do it through our provider. I don't know. I'm there's a part of me that's really sort of digging this. I'm not gonna lie. So anyway, you all are gonna have to give me a sec so I got to get these things up and going. There we go. I got to get I got to get my featured chat running so that I can showcase all these amazing, fantastic, salty comments because they're my favorites. Okay, let's refresh that. Bam. Okay, good. I think I should be able to start featuring this silliness. Anything? Bueller? There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Well, I figured one day we'd get this sorted out. Okay. So can we do a PS provider and .NET Core? Oh yeah, we're way off the reservation now. There's no way. So this is PowerShell.management. List of available for a Graph CLI. There is a Graph CLI out there. BSD guy. Let's see. It's like super early days, but there is a preview CLI, so you can go out and check that out right now. It's just been out since last summer. I don't know what version it's on, but I've actually been using it myself. So pretty cool. It's out there at the out there on GitHub. How do we do a new PS provider? But it says they're .NET framework programs. So I guess if they're framework programs, they just sadly, we're just going to, maybe the answer is no. Maybe the answer is, oh, hello, what's this? Maybe the answer is that we can't do it. Which would be super disappointing, mind you. But I'm feeling like we might not be able to. This is, I don't even know what this is. It's too bad. Well, let's see. Build a PowerShell provider. Maybe I should use a different search engine. Is Lycos still around? I'm going to go over here to this one. This other one that rhymes with Oogle. Okay. Create Peloton layoffs. What happened there? Create a PowerShell provider. So this is still Windows, okay, whatever. Maybe it's got to be Windows only, because these are the docs that are on the docs, and they're last updated September of last year. This has got to be. It's got to be this legacy thing. Extended type system, writing help, writing a formatting file, a host application. Maybe that. No, that can't be it. A PowerShell provider. Okay, hang on. Oh no, that's still the legacy SDK. Modern modules. Command line predictor. I don't know. I don't think I'm feeling that, to be quite honest. So, sadly, unfortunately, I feel like there's not a future for us here for this, which is unfortunate, but sad. Well, that's a command predictor, though. I don't want a command predictor. I want to navigate an Azure AD directory, which is a hierarchical directory, of course. Okay, Bolt. Now, only because I trust and believe you am I going to type this in without checking it first. Neva. Okay. Chocolate chip cookies, things to do in Denmark, and React hooks. Okay. PowerShell provider. .NET Core. Here we go. Here's somebody from Reddit from 3 years ago. So this will probably be the dagger that removes any hope that this is going to work. You need to build against .NET Standard and the PowerShell SDK. Okay. I mean, that's encouraging. It would have been funny if it had been a Rickroll. Okay, so you can create a .NET Standard library, but it still wouldn't run on here because I don't have .NET Framework on here because it's Mac, right? It's only going to be .NET Core. So even if we could write it, it wouldn't actually work. So does it even matter? Is it like a tree in the woods? I don't know. I'm gonna search for provider. I want to search in PowerShell though. Ooh, it's gonna be risky. Provider. Okay. Search for provider in PowerShell. Okay. Whew. Maybe it's package provider? No, that would be a thing that provides packages, right? I think I remember you can navigate your Azure subscriptions that way too. This is a long time ago. I don't know if you can still do it, but so let's see. What are the providers we have now? Like if I was to do like a new PS, is there a new PS provider? A new PS drive? This needs a PS provider, and those are the only ones that are there. Where's the code for that? Surely the provider code exists somewhere, probably in GitHub, right? Be my guess. So let's see here. Not this person's GitHub. PowerShell. Let's go to PowerShell. Okay, and in here, let's look for providers. What's this one called? We'll call it I guess it's an environment PS provider, but environment. I'll search in this repository. Okay. Get PS provider test, set location. Okay. Tab completions, system management automation. Registry provider. Okay. Okay. We're getting a little closer, I think. I feel like it might be a little closer. If not Unix. It's nice. So let's see, Microsoft.PowerShell.commands. It does have 132, but that might just be because it's the registry. Let's see if the file system or the environment one's in here. The environment one I feel like should be fairly straightforward. Here we go, an environment provider. Okay. So it's just using system. It's encouraging. I don't know what system management automation. I don't know. Presumably that's part of .NET Core too. Environment provider. Okay. So, okay, humor me for a moment here. Okay. So let me get out of this. So let's go here. PS provider. And let's do a new, a class lib, I think, and we'll call this PS core provider because it's probably not going to do what we want it to do out of the box. So, okay, let's get this open. Now, if I I opened the wrong folder. Oh, rookie move. But I call those PS provider. Wait a minute. Oh, no, I did it in the wrong folder. I didn't switch into my folder first. Oh. PS Core provider into here. Okay. CD PS Core provider. All right, let's open this up. I'm getting a little rusty. I don't have all of you chasing me down, keeping me on my toes anymore. I don't have Christos here berating me the entire time. It's just not the same writing code without him. Not going to lie. Okay, so at a minimum we need, at a minimum we're going to need system management automation, right? So let's add a package, Microsoft, or was it system management automation. And this is .NET 6, it should be anyway. Goodness, there's a lot in there. Yes, this is .NET 6, okay. I'm just going to go take this whole thing. Let's see. Let's take literally their entire file. and just create a new one called invite. We'll call this the inv provider. And in the inv provider, we've got a bunch of problems, but whatever. Okay, so in here, I wonder if surely it doesn't have to be in. I'd hope it doesn't have to be in here. So we can't derive from this, but this is deriving from session state provider base. So that is all the providers that produce a view on session state data, which this one doesn't really do, right? Because this would be, well, I don't think it'd really be session state, right? That doesn't make any sense. I don't think that would be session state data if we're going to query like some HTTP CLI, right? So let's see. What are the other providers? Where's that browser? Let's see, the other providers. There's a file system provider, a function provider. Data accessor for shell functions. Oh, I guess this maybe this translates down to actual to something else. Okay. Provider base security, safe registry, and blah, 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 blah. The variable provider, the session state provider base. Ooh, what's navigation provider base? And what's deriving from that? So this is deriving from a container. So let's go look at the session state one. Maybe I should just clone this whole thing and look. So this is coming from a container commandlet provider. Okay. See, this is a view on session state data, variables, aliases, and functions. Variables, aliases, and functions. Maybe environment's a bad one to look at. I'm kind of feeling like maybe environment isn't the best one for us to consider. Maybe we're doing an item provider. Is this an item provider? Item commandlet provider derives from to inherit a set of methods allow the monad engine to provide a core set of oh boy, I don't even know what a monad is. They want to take advantage of the item core commands that are already implemented by the monad engine. This allows users of common commands and semantics across multiple providers. Interesting. I think, that's a good question, Fuel. I think you may be correct. If it wasn't monad, it was something like that. I believe you are correct, my friend, that was at some point the name. Monad was the name for that, I think. So, okay, so I'm actually not feeling like session state is the right one. I'm thinking navigation might be. So which one of these is going through as a navigation provider? So there's drive provider base, container provider base. Why isn't any of this documented? I guarantee you I'll have an email after this saying it is documented, you clown. If you would go read it, it would be here. So let's see here. This was just updated 24 days ago too. An alias provider. What is an alias provider? That uses session state too. Yeah, you're probably right, Fuel. It is the get item. Here, I'm almost certain that's what it would be. It's the thing that lets you say, give me an item or whatever. So if I do like a GCI users, it's going to be the thing that goes and fetches the user. Which always makes me wonder if we need more than one of these. Like if we're going to have, because it'll be a drive. Let's see, set item, rename, copy, get child item, and a new item. And those are, I'm not sure where those are coming from. Provider commandlet. Why does it feel like I'm so blind here? I felt like this was going to be something relatively straightforward, but clearly I was wrong. System management automation provider. Let's see. There just feels like there are just no docs on this. Like they're all the AutoGen API docs, but none of the like, how do you build one of these things docs? You know what I mean? You dig? A robust healthcare provider network? What does that even mean? That's okay. We'll figure it out. Let's look at the file system provider. I mean, that's got to be different per environment too, right? I mean, like it's going to be, obviously it's going to be a little bit different. So what does this derive from? It's a navigation commandlet provider, and it implements content, property, security descriptor, and commandlet provider supports help interfaces. So obviously there's going to be a ton of goop in here, but I think navigation might be the first one that we want to look at, right? The navigation commandlet provider. Can you see what derives from these things yet? I guess not. So navigation commandlet. And the navigation commandlet lets us build paths, it looks like. Okay. Internal wrapper for, okay, blah, blah, blah. Navigation commandlet provider. Implements and allows uses of core commands against the data store the provider gives access to. Can you take advantage of recursive commands, nested containers, and relative paths? So we want to be a navigation commandlet provider. Okay. So we're going to call this, we're going to call ours Microsoft, or we'll just call it Graph provider, because there's only one graph, obviously. Graph provider, and it is a navigation commandlet. Is it navigation commandlet provider? Yes, a navigation commandlet provider. Okay. And our name here will just be Graph. And of course, we've got to update our stuff here. Graph provider. Okay. Oh my goodness. What is this? The constructor region feels very style copy. Comments. Who needs comments, right? Okay. Please. I like this is helpful. This is helpful. This comment. Region thing is not. Click on the class and the tab references to see where it's used. The giraffe provider. Good one, Bolt. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jay Steph. I was curious if in here we click this. Oh yeah, references. Good call. Way to go. I'm glad I made it clear that I am not looking at a solid half of the page. Maybe there's like a UI study in here, which is that it's not obvious that these are clickable. Years ago, there was a website called Which Test One. I don't think it exists anymore, but it was a person who did like UX studies for folks. And she would put up every day, she had like an every day was a little quiz. Which one of these had better conversions? And it was, two designs for the same, like click here to buy or click here to learn more thing for like an e-commerce site or whatever. And what was fascinating is that the one that always won was the one that always looked aesthetically like less pleasing. The fonts were wonky or huge, or the colors were really bright and bold, but not in like an aesthetically pleasing way, but more in like but you couldn't help but look at it, and the conversions were higher. So, simple fact is, aesthetics don't matter. What matters is what people's eyeballs are drawn to. So, thank you, Jay Steph. Appreciate it. Okay. So, we've got our graph provider. Doesn't need to be sealed because if somebody wants to derive from it, hey, who am I to tell them no? So we've got a few things that we need to go and we'll definitely have a few things in here that we need to go and we're going to have to go and sort out, right? So what have we not implemented? Let's implement our abstract class. I don't know how much smaller it got, but that's okay. Let's get rid of, I do kind of want to get rid of some of these regions because they're really kind of bugging me. But okay, get session state on. So we're not going to use session state, right? because, ouch, because we don't, I mean, I guess maybe we've kind of got session state in the sense that our session state is going to be that you've got tokens and all this sort of stuff in there, right? But I don't actually believe we're overriding this because that's part of the session state navigation provider, and we're not using the session state navigation provider. So I'm going to take this one out. And this sets a session state item. I wonder if a session state item is also something that's just not persistent. Set, remove, get table. I don't think we're going to need any of these because these are all part of that session state one. Get value of item. Is a valid path. It looks like is literally the only one that we have to actually implement ourselves. So let's get rid of all of these things, and we may find that session state ends up being the thing that's much better than this anyway. The description, that strings class, I'm sure is back in the thing somewhere. We'll just call this giraffe. Oops. Okay. And then the drive name, obviously that's going to be giraffe. We could make it, I guess maybe we could localize it, do a French one that's La Girafe, like Sophie. But we'll call it giraffe for now. So this will give us a drive, right? Get rid of all this. Okay, so this is the drive. Initialize the default drives. Ooh. Okay, so I think we have at least a stub here, enough of a stub that we can start figuring out where we need to implement. Let this thing do its thing. Cool, that's fine. All right, so is a valid path. Looks like the only thing that has to be overridden. So that's the navigation one. Let's go back to the file system one here. So the file system one, goodness gracious. So it's a commandlet provider that does, has a lot of things. Credentials, filter, and should process. File security, path info. So I wonder if these must be the extra things that it has to spit out. So navigation commandlet, and then iContent commandlet. And I'm assuming iContent commandlet, that must be, this is the thing that's going to do the, presumably is going to actually read the code, right? So let's look at this one. iContent commandlet provider. And this has clear content dynamic parameters, get a content reader. This is the thing that actually reads the content. And if we treated our entire thing like JSON, right? I mean, I wonder if there's even a PowerShell navigation for JSON. Okay, so our navigation one is valid path. And if we have is valid path, when we get the path, it's essentially, it's good, return true, right? So if I wanted to, I guess now if I wanted to run this though, how on earth, what does this have to be wrapped in order to be a part of that? Because I imagine it'd have to be wrapped in some kind of a PowerShell module, right? Presumably it'll build because there's literally nothing in there. Okay. So if I have an assembly. How do we get our assembly into PowerShell, I wonder? It has to be wrapped in some kind of a module, presumably, right? Let's see. So that's under, okay. Maybe I should go back and read the docs here on how to build one of these. Maybe the way you build it for Windows is the same way you build it now, just you use different classes and libraries is kind of what I'm wondering. Let's get rid of some of these other windows here. Okay. So this is our file system one, which is super, obviously it's super complex. It's got all sorts of stuff in it. Normalize the path, get a corrected cased path. Oh my, lots of string character manipulation there. That's fun. File system info. Goodness gracious. How many lines of code are in this thing? 10,000 lines of code in one thing, in one file. Ooh, goodness gracious. And what looks like PowerShell strings? Or maybe this is help documentation. Oh my God. Oh. Okay, I guess that's help documentation. PS copy remote utils. Maybe this one isn't the best one to look at for inspiration, we'll say. Let me go back to, should we go back to environment provider? Should we go back to alias provider? These are still session state providers, but maybe the session state one is the right one because it's going to go collect, or maybe it's, these are alias provider dynamic parameters, new item, set item. Okay, get session state item. I mean, get value of item, set an item, remove an item, can rename an item. Okay. I don't even, but like, we don't even need session state, right? Like, we don't actually need to use this session state. And that's the thing that's making me wonder. But I'm also kind of like, well, all of these seem to be using that pretty well. Variable, like function provider, which I'm assuming has something to do with like, let's see, exposes variables to the user as drives. The function drive. Does that mean I can go and like run functions as if they're files? Can I like inspect the .NET assembly with as a file tree? Well, see, this is exactly the question, Fuel, is how do we make PowerShell aware of our new provider? And I'm thinking we got to wrap it we got to wrap it in a module or something, I would think. So, you know, so this is all this dynamic parameter stuff. I'm assuming takes what you give it and tries to turn it into something that's based on the properties that are included. These are session state items. I mean, part of me is tempted to take one of these, take the environment one like I had before and just go back. Like maybe I got a little ahead of myself. We should just take the environment one and take the environment one and essentially just make a few changes. So we're going to call our provider Giraffe provider. Should process. I'll have to figure out what those are later, but all right. And then let's make this unsealed. Let's make this a Giraffe provider. And the provider name is Giraffe. Got our constructor region again, which I will save my judgment for later. Giraffe provider. Sorry. So yeah, I guess today we just sort of. I thought a package provider, Fuel. I thought a package provider was something like a PS Gallery or one of those things, right? One of those things that lets you download packages. I'm not quite sure if that's. We'll go and look though. Yeah. So what began as I need to go update this because somebody's asking me for it has turned into, we're not going to do that at all. We're going to go build a PowerShell thing instead. I'm not entirely sure how this happened, but such is life, I suppose. Giraffe stuff. Okay. And here we'll go back and do some strings later once we know if this is even ever actually going to work. Even in any sort of even partially remote case. Okay. So what is the beef here? No suitable method found to override. And it can't override because this is an internal. So if I personally want to derive from session state provider base, am I not allowed to because I'm not internal? Because I'm not internal to that thing, right? I'm not part of that assembly, so I wouldn't even see that. So what is overridable? Internal, we'll just do public override. Okay, so we have item separator, get resource string, item separator, and toString. Okay, so there's not much here, is there? So we can't override that. Can't override that. Can't override that because these are all internal overrides. So the only thing we can, looks like the only thing we can legitimately do, comment all those out since I can't do them anyway. So it looks like the only thing that we can legitimately do here, oops, yeah, this is, I'm apparently forgetting how to use my mouse today. The only thing we can legitimately do, let's see, public override. Oh, I've broken it now, so now I can't get my stuff here. Oh, there it is. Oh, my IntelliSense is broken. I guess I could go look at the thing and see what we can override. Okay, so what in here is overridable? So, sorry. And then we've got our virtuals. Well, let's see, we can override. Okay, right. So we've got all these. So get content readers, content writers. We can clear an item. We can copy an item. We can get a child item. So these must all be in session state. It's a valid path. Item exists. New item. Remove item. So how do we hydrate the session state? Maybe my curiosity here. All right. So we got our session state provider. Clear dynamic content. Get content reader. So how do we fill that with data? How does the environment provider, for example, how does it get full of environment data? Maybe it doesn't. But no, here it is right here. Get session state item. New dictionary entry, and it returns the result after it goes and gets the environment variable. I mean, it feels like it's right there. It's literally that, right? But I can't override that one because it's internal. I'm sorry. So let's do a public override. Get rid of this. Public override. We get session state item. No suitable method found to override. So how do they get to do that? It's a problem when I do it, but they can do it. Because, I mean, that would be it, and that would be stupidly simple if we could do this. But diagnostics is not in there either. Interesting. Okay, so the value is that. So all this is really doing, because we get session state item based on a name, but we can't override that ourselves because we're not, because it's a session state provider base. Let me go back over here to the code for a sec. Let's go look. Session state provider base. Yeah, so they're internal. So we can only, derived classes must override to get items from session state, but we can't because they're internal. Unless my understanding of that's incorrect. But because it's internal, it's only accessible to other members of the same assembly. Same assembly, right? How did that change when we got away from like assemblies and assembly bindings and app domains and all that? Only accessible within files of the same assembly. Okay, so it is still same assembly, okay? Meaning we can't, I mean, I guess that means you can't use this. What it feels like, because the way that they do that doesn't seem to be a way that we can do it. So these are our internal ones. And then the commandlet provider. Well, okay, so what about get item? We should be able to do a get item, right? Protected override void get item. We should be able to override that, right? Get rid of this one. There, yeah, you're right. Fuel, there might be a template for Visual Studio if I install the SDK, and who knows if I can even install the SDK. Yeah, so this one's protected, but it's an override of item commandlet provider. And being that it's an override of item commandlet provider, but it's not marked as abstract or virtual here, I can't override it myself in a derived class, I don't believe. Is that correct? Where are my .NET people? Because we're overriding here. Do I have to create a session state? Well, you would think if I created a session state provider, because what is this actually writing to? Like, here's a set. So we're gonna try session state provider set item action, set item resource template, host current culture resource template name and value. What's a resource template? Right, that's what I thought, Bolt. Oh boy, thanks, C# Fritz. 98 folks came over. What's up? We're having fun. We're trying to build a PowerShell provider, which is not what I expected to do when I got up this morning, but that's what we're doing. So welcome. How are things over in Fritz land? What were you all working on over there? Anything interesting? Anything fun? So that's awesome. Thanks everybody. Thanks for coming over. We're trying to reverse engineer the existing environment providers for PowerShell. So we're blowing stuff up, Robertable. It's good to see you back again. I haven't seen you in a long time, friend. Good to see you again. Yeah, we're blowing some stuff up. It's getting a little dicey because we're trying to sort out. We're trying to override things we're not supposed to be overriding, and we're just trying to. It's just sort of a mess. So yeah, it's turned into a lot of fun. Like, I don't really do a whole lot of PowerShell, but I've done enough, and I've done enough to know that what we want to do is make a provider so you can go search through your Azure AD, like Azure AD tenant, and go and delete everything like through scripting, and navigate your entire Azure AD tenant as if it is a tree, like a hierarchy tree. So that's what we're trying to do, and we're taking a look at some of these other things to try to do it. So Fuel sent us a link to the SDK samples. Let's see what we got in here. So the original intention was to go and update an old .NET app that we had, but then for some reason or another, I was talked into not doing that. So I talked myself into not doing it. So that's where we are. Is we're trying to figure out how to build a provider, a PowerShell provider that essentially is going to be a wrapper around a bunch of Graph API calls. So I guess we get this Access Database provider sample. Maybe this is enough. So how to implement a basic Windows PowerShell provider, blah, 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 blah. Oh, each one of these has more. Okay. So create a basic one. It's in C#. Look at this text. This is amazing. And you have to use Visual Studio. So we're going to take a look here. Let's see what's going on. Thank you, Fuel, for sending this over. So that's literally it for that. Let's maybe jump ahead to one of the later samples. I feel like maybe that is SDK3 the latest one. Oh, I guess it is. Yeah. Okay. Let's jump to maybe. I guess we could look at sample two. I mean, we want to start. We want to start small. We don't need anything crazy. This creates PowerShell drives. Okay, which I think we're already doing. So it's going to create a new PowerShell drive, and it does a bunch of checks. Access DBPS drive info. So that's a new thing. This is our ODBC connection. So this builds our ODBC connection to that access database, and then we have a remove drive. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. And then this is their PS drive info. So that's kind of neat. So looking at that, so this is a drive commandlet provider. And was it also that in the last one that we looked at? In sample one? Because if we have to change the type each time, I feel like that might be a little strange. And we should just jump ahead to the last one and see. So this is a commandlet provider, but the other one was a drive provider only. It didn't seem to include the other one. So let me go back to number 2 here. We're going to look at CS. We're going to look at number 2. So our provider here is a drive commandlet provider. Okay, well, I think one thing we do know definitely is we are no longer going to be a session state provider. So a drive commandlet provider, okay, we've got that one. And then it looks like we're going to have to do new drive, okay. We'll probably have to implement that, yeah. Although I guess when you connect the drive, that's a good time for you to log in, right? You think? Seems like a good time to do that. So let's see here. So these are our drive commandlet providers. Looks like we've already got some of those that we stole from the other one, right? So here's our PS drive info. We've got our new drive. All these weird initializations that I almost feel like a lot of that code was sort of auto-generated. And then let's see, our PS drive info. So we've got our drive info here, which is great. We're going to call it draft. We've got our provider info. Cool. Okay. Our description, which is just gunk. Now this one, of course, this one is far more robust, and then it's checking if it's empty and doing a bunch of other work. And then the other thing it's doing is creating this ODBC connection, which we aren't doing. We're not doing any sort of initialization work, which we probably should be doing to connect to Graph and to get tokens and do all that sort of work, right? Because this is actually opening a connection in this method. So I'm assuming maybe that's okay. Which raises the third question, which is how interactive, I wonder, can we be in here? Or are you going to have to give us a token or something to get started? Or you're going to have to log in somehow. You know what we could do in the essence of saving time, since I'm not even entirely sure this is going to even work. One thing we could do is I wonder if during initialization, we could call the Azure CLI. Azure CLI has a method on it that will give you an access token as you for a specific resource. Now, I've got Azure CLI on here. Obviously, we're in PowerShell, so we might want to look at using Azure PowerShell or whatever. But I mean, we need a token, I'd say, fairly quickly right now, just so we can actually get enough of a stub of this up and working. So it's like AZ account get access token resource, and then the resource in our case is going to be graph.microsoft.com whack.user.default. Now, thanks for following. I would say that, but I feel like I'll say something I'll regret. So if I was to run this, and I'll run it with half of my screen hanging off, so you can't get the entire access token, then we should get an access token for Graph for my specific account, right? Now, that is, of course, had I typed in the correct resource name. I guess we don't need that default on here, so we get this over here. Good. So now you can all go and take my access token and go do stuff. Now we can take this access token and we can use that to go and do things. And one of the things that's nice is that this is not interactive. Well, so that's the thing, Bolt. So Bolt mentions that I should have said scope, and in some ways, he's correct in that I wrote a scope. What we are actually looking for is a resource, which is sort of an Azure AD V1, type of construct of the entirety of a resource rather than just a specific one. So, luckily, enough of this is hanging off the screen that if you wanted to guess what those letters are, that would be an interesting stream, actually. But it expires in an hour. So you have 60 minutes to get right something. Okay, so this could be what we use to go and get our. Oh, look at that! It's actually adding the dot default for us. So our dot default. That's why it blew up. So anyway, so essentially we're going to run this command. We want to run this command or something like it. Now there's a better way to do this without a doubt, but we're going to run this command for now as a way to initialize our drive, right? So let's see. I don't know what type this is going to be just yet. So initialize drive with AZ CLI access token. And essentially I got to figure out how on earth are we going to run this, or can we pass data into this such that we can run that and then like pipe the token over into our PowerShell. Oh, we're going to be in PowerShell. I don't know. Let's figure that one out. So can PowerShell go and run a command? What is it like? So we want .NET to tell PowerShell to invoke a command. This is starting to feel, I could hear some circus music off in the distance. The other option, I guess, is we could do something we could do something like a device code flow. Now, let's see. PowerShell create. Thank you, JSteph. JSteph sent over, or JSTEF. I don't want to make any assumptions. PowerShell create method. So that creates an instance of PowerShell, which I wonder if we could then run our command in it. Because normally in .NET, we would do a new process, right? It's like system, it's not debug. How do we start a new process? God, it's been a long time, man. Feels bad. Let's see. Start a process from .NET. But, yeah, so we need our process, and we need our command, right? But what namespace is process in? Of course, it's not there. What namespace is process in? Does anybody know off the top of their head? I don't want process code methods. I just want a new process. Where is this? System diagnostics. There we go. Okay, so our new process. And then ask Copilot. Good idea. Is my Copilot not running? Oh, no, it's running. Yeah, why isn't it doing anything? What's up with this Copilot? All right. So our... let's see. Hang on a second. Start info. That's what we need. There we go. There we go. Get access token resource https graph.microsoft.com. Okay. And then I forget what use shell execute means. Although I probably do want to use shell execute, right? Because I need to have my user context when I do that. See, everything's fine until you need to know who the user is, and then the whole thing goes sideways. Sounds familiar, huh? So use shell although this thing, This is going to go read the AZ account's going to go read your access tokens file and refresh tokens file to go figure out, like, it's going to go read your, essentially your keychain stuff to go figure out how to get a token for you. So we will have to do an AZ login first, but you would, if you're not already logged in, that's correct. You just have to do an AZ login. I'm going to skip that for the moment because I just want to see if bare bones I can get this thing to at least register so I know how to, so I have something to work on later. So if we initialize the drive with an AZ CLI access token, this is just going to make sure you're signed in, okay? Which means we can then go make graph calls using this access token that we get, right? So how do we store? Let's see, so let's open it up and then access. So this has got a class that's got some state. So then later on, I'm assuming when we go and look for items, maybe that's what we have to do. We create us an object, and that object's going to have our object's going to have our connection in it, so that we'll be able to access our connection in the future. And maybe we'll just do that for our string, for our access token, right? And so access, this is a drive info, which is right down here, right? Access DBPS drive info. Is that the, let's see, and that's overriding PS drive info. Any state associated with the drive should be held here. Bam. Okay. So let's create an AZ CLI PS drive info. We're going to need one of those, right? Let's get rid of all this other junk. We don't need this. Let's clean this up. Look like we're marginally professional here, right? Okay. He says this here. All right, so let's create a new class, AZ CLI graph token provider PS drive info. Bam. Nothing like verbosity when your font size is 28. Okay. Then I have like I have some. I feel like I've got an extra curlies. Some extra curly somewhere. Oh. Class. All right. Okay. And then in here, we're going to have our I can't. I feel so dirty doing this. Okay. So we're going to have our graph access token. Okay. And now, what's happening? How does this thing get initialized? How are we initializing access DBPS, blah, blah, blah. So they're putting that, so they're creating, I see, that seems like a weird way to do it. That's the remove. So they're creating a new one with the drive info, right? And then returning the drive info, all right? PS drive info, new PS info drive, okay. Because all we really need is our thing. That's all we really need is our access token, right? So I guess in theory, we could also take our methods here and we could probably just stuff them in our provider since it's a really awful provider anyway. And we'll just take this and put this in here. And here we will. Now we got to capture the output too, which is, so it was a p dot run start. And then how do we have to capture the output, right? I feel like it's going to be a lot easier to get a token and pass it into this than it is to go and just capture the standard output. So where are we going to redirect the output to? Let's see, true if it should be written, the default is false. Okay. So the, let's see. All of these are just properties. So you redirect the standard input, but to where? So let's see. Let's do a process. Let's see. .NET process start, capture, output, bam. Capturing the standard output of a process. I know you can't see my screen, but that's okay, because I've learned my lesson Googling things with people watching. I'm going to tell you that. I'm making that mistake again. Okay. Output data received. Oops. Sorry. I know it's a little jumpy. So, output data received. Oh, so we could do a begin output read line. One of those, that's an old school, like, event way to do it. Uh-oh. So then I wonder, begin output read line. I wonder if we could just do that one instead. Let's see what begin output read line looks like. Begin output read line. Can you all hear the music that's playing behind my voice? Because I can a little bit. It's very, very quiet. But I don't know if you can hear it or not. Wow, begin output read line is super, super old. I feel like this is a very backwards way to do this. Begin output read line. No. Output data received. And then we've got args. Okay, and our args are, obviously we don't want a console write line, thank you. But what we do want to do is the data is actually JavaScript, JSON object. Lord have mercy, we're going to have to go parse JSON? Oh my God, I don't want to do that either. But this is a bad way. This is a bad way to get our token is what I'm learning. There's part of me that literally just wants to copy and paste this token in here and say return this token for now. Because I just want to like, there's so many other pieces to do to like wrap this thing up and make it work. So I'm going to come back to this one. We are going to return. I can't believe I'm doing this, but okay. I don't think anybody could read that. So, okay. We're going to return that. We're going to set our graph access token equal to, and I know I shouldn't run this, and I shouldn't be running a method in the constructor, but at least all it's doing is returning a string. What is it complaining about? Yeah, okay, yeah, it could be static. That's true. Replace your entire method with a property. Yeah, I know we can do that too. Okay. But that's just because this is going to be a terrible, thank you for following, Tyree88, by the way. This is just going to be a terrible, the quickest and the dirtiest of the dirty, just to get our plumbing. Once we have our plumbing, I think then we can really sort of accelerate our actual code. And I think that's part of the problem, I feel like, with normal software now is like, it's 99% tooling and like getting your environment created the way it needs to be, and like 2% actually writing software. Okay, so we've got our drive. We have our thing that's going to give us a graph access token when we need it. Now they're opening up a connection right now, so whatever, we don't need to do that. So let's look at the next one. And I'm just going to make an assumption here that I can hit number 3, and it's going to take me to number 3. It is. So, see, this is, are each one of these things different? Because this is an item commandlet provider. What? Like, this is a drive commandlet provider. This is an item commandlet provider. Are these different files? What is this? This is number 2. This is the drive commandlet provider. This example only demonstrates the drive overrides. This example implements the item overrides. I guess we have more than one. So we're going to be a drive commandlet provider. We're also going to be an item commandlet provider. Can we even do that? I don't think you do. You can't do that. Yeah, you can't have multiple base classes. Thank you. That's what I thought. So now we have this access DB provider, which is the item over. Is each one of these different? Access DB provider. That's what this one's called, right? So the one before this, access DB provider, access DB provider. What? Whoa, what? I'm going to go look at the last one, because presumably the last one is a fully working one, right? I mean, hopefully, because otherwise we're going to be in real trouble. Okay. So this has the following. This has all of it. Okay. Levels of navigation, containers of items, manipulating items through the provider. Cool. Okay. Running the sample. Perfect. So we will do an import module to import the DLL, and that's it. Get a PS provider. This is what I'm talking about. This is a great sample. Thanks for finding this, Fuel Snabble. Thank you for finding this. Okay. So now I see. Now we've sort of reached our sort of total final form here. We're a navigation commandlet provider, and we're implementing a content commandlet provider. So the navigation commandlet provider, presumably from what we learned earlier, is the thing that lets us do a drive and lets us traverse that drive and have hierarchies, etc. And then our content commandlet, by implementing that interface, that'll be the thing that lets us actually go and read the content that we're getting back of items in that drive, right? So let's implement what's missing here. Cool. Okay. Oh, we got quite a few. So should we create a region? Region. I mean, I feel like because this is Windows PowerShell, that we're kind of like, it's a little older. I feel like these two things sort of go together. What theme? You mean like Visual Studio theme, or like the theme of this entire show? Because the theme of this entire show is we generally do identity stuff, and we write .NET stuff. We do identity well. Like I worked for the Azure AD product group, and we do all this sort of stuff. The theme, this is just like a super basic, boring theme. The one that came with it, Dark Plus, default dark. We used to have a really cool one on here, but I actually don't know what happened to it. But yeah, this is just a Dark Plus, the default dark one for VS Code. I feel like we should go find the old one that we used to have. Now, I am using, I think, font-wise, I think the font is JetBrains Mono. It is JetBrains Mono, because I like the JetBrains Mono font. Don't really like using IntelliJ, but that's not so much about JetBrains. It's more about the fact that when I worked at a job that required me to write Java, I wanted to physically pull my eyeballs out of my head because it was very uncomfortable. Anyway, but some of the crispness may come from the font. So, okay. So our content stuff, obviously, we're going to have to go figure that out. Now, what are we complaining about now? Does not implement inherited abstract member is valid path. So we'll have to get that done too. We'll go ahead and let this thing do that, whatever. Yes, implement your abstract class. Is valid path. And is valid path is overridden from the item commandlet provider. Okay. Okay. So let's go look now at the final form of this. So this is they're using regions too, but it is also an Access database, and it is also PowerShell. So I mean, we got to temper our expectations here. So we're creating our new drive. Cool. That's pretty straightforward. We figured out how to do that. We have to remove a drive, which I don't think we're actually removing our drive anywhere, are we? Initialize default drives. I'm not actually certain that we are removing our drive, but part of me feels like perhaps maybe some of this is handled for us, because this is an old sample and it is old .NET Framework stuff. And of course, they have things to clean up. This is very true. They do have like ODBC connections they have to clean up, so I can see why they'd want to make sure they explicitly sort of clean that up. Okay, drive manipulation, item method. So get item. Okay. So get item, we have to figure out where we are, and then we'd have to figure out in that path where that would take us, which means, I guess that sort of means we have to maybe kind of think about what our pathing sort of structure might be, but Let's keep going before we get there. So we got set items. This is just our implementation of setting that. So they're doing database tables, so whatever. Item exists, okay, that's pretty straightforward. Is a valid path, okay. And then container overload. So these must be the containers. This will be like users, for example. So get child items, and this will be recursive. So this might be one of the more fun methods because we're going to have to say, we're going to have a list, I assume, of top-level objects, users, applications, service principals. What the hell is that noise? Is somebody bowling upstairs? Apps, service principals, enterprise, or users, groups. I guess maybe we could just pick a few to start with. And each one of those is going to have child items, but then each one of those will likely have child items because we'll have management groups, we'll have admin units. Applications will then have containers within those, like reply URLs. Like, I almost wish I could take, part of me is like, hey, you should just take the manifest of an Azure AD application and just parse it and make every array make every array a collection. So we're not going to manually, I don't think we need to manually build out our schema. But at least for now, let's just start with something simple. We're just going to do users because users was the thing that we were asked about. So we'll start just at users, but then I think there might be an opportunity for something else, for us to do something different. So I'm going to ask my wife what that noise is because it's crazy. Somebody texted me. I have no idea who this person is, but they texted me and said that the LinkedIn comments on the show are screwed up. Is anybody watching on LinkedIn? I didn't even know LinkedIn was a thing. Do people use that? Me? It's in here, right? How do you... Oh, wait a minute. Is it gone? Did it end? Oh. Oh, there's Patrick. Oh, it's Dan Goss. It's too bad. I guess that our stream ended on LinkedIn. Oh, no, it says that it's live. I don't know, man. LinkedIn is a whole new ball of wax. Okay, sorry. Let's get back to the matter at hand. So get child items. This will be all of our containers. These are our container overloads, which reads like container overlords, but this isn't a Kubernetes show. So get our child names. Okay. Oh, interesting. It's kind of neat now. Okay. Okay, has child items. Okay, easy enough. New items. This is all of our creation. We're not even worried about creating stuff just yet. I don't think. At least, hopefully, we shouldn't. Wow, good. Because the new stuff, when you start dealing with state, a whole lot of extra data that you have to worry about. So this is copying items. See, I think that'll be one of the cool ones, right? Like export Azure AD tenant, and it just goes through and runs through the entire tree and just exports a bunch of JSON. Like, I think that would be super, super cool and be so easy for doing stuff like, copying between tenants, creating new tenants, migrating from environment to environment even, right? Like if you want to go from dev to QA to stage to prod with like an app registration info or a group of test users or something, I think that'd be a cool name to do it. So these are our navigation, the navigation items. Okay. Man, there's a lot of code in here. We're not even halfway through. And we're already 1,000 lines. So hang on. I'm not going to read through the entire thing because that just seems excessive. 2,400 lines of code. That's insanity. Surely it can't be this much. So there's this helper class. Okay, so this is our content writer. So these are things that write to database. A reader reads from the database. Okay. Database row info. Okay, lots of boilerplate here, which is fine. There's our PS drive info. The path type. Oh man, this is way more involved than I thought it was going to be. Ambitious but rubbish, I think that's the term, right? Okay, so let's just go look at what we got. So we've got our content commandlet implementation. I think we're going to need to do, I guess the first thing we'd want to do is enumerate our containers, right? Which containers we need. So let's start, I'm going to get back up here a little ways, and let's start there. So we've got, so those are our items. We're not going to even worry about the individual items yet. If we don't have to, because we've got containers more than anything, right? So item methods, unless we have to, I wonder if the individual, like users as a collection, but does that mean it is also an item? Oh yeah, if the path type. So I guess we have to start at our items, right? Because our first container, the root container, is going to have 4 items in it: users, apps, service principals, and it's going to have 3 items in it: users, apps, and service principals. And for each one of those 3, there are 3 items, but each one is a container as well, and has its own collection of items inside of it, right? So I guess we've got to start with our item stuff. So those are content, right? So let's do our item stuff first. Item stuff. So the first one is we have to get an item. Thank you, Copilot, for that unbelievable implementation. Write an item. Write item object. What does that even mean? Oh, that looks like a method in the thing. Okay, so if the path is the drive, then we're going to write giraffe. There's no path, and it's not read only. Okay, so our root. I'll call these our root containers. We're going to have users, app registrations, service principals. Okay. You know it's in PAL because service principals are your PAL. So our root container, so what we want to write for the item objects. So how are they doing? So let's see, right? Item object. That's an item object, right? It's a table. So essentially, our first item is going to be a giraffe. Is it though? Because none of these look. This doesn't look like I'm returning like an array of things, right? So if it's the path, we're going to return the drive info for this path, and it's read only. Is PS drive info in our base class? PS drive info, okay. So what is our path is drive? Let's go check this method first. Oh, apparently I can't. Where is that coming from? Where is that? Oh, here we go. Okay, so just some string namey stuff. Cool, okay. So if the path is empty, or it's the root, or if it's the root with a whatever our path separator is, which we haven't even defined yet, if it's one of those, then essentially it's true. So it's this PS drive info.root. Okay. So if the path is equal to this PS drive info root, we're going to be a lot more basic about this because I just want to see this work, and we've been doing this for a little while. I want to see it work before we go. Then we're going to write the path. Cool. So you can see if you were to type in like an extra whack at the end, this is probably going to break, right? So if the, oh no. Okay. If the path, okay, clearly, GitHub has given me giving me some trouble here. So if the path is users, right, that's one of our containers, and I feel like there's a much better way to do this, but if our path is users, well, no, because users would be an object inside of the root, correct? Like that's what I think, right? That would make any sense. Like if I went to, graph is like my thing and typed in like LS or DIR, I would expect to see users, apps, or, I'd expect to see my things, right? Now what they're saying is if you do that, they're going to return, but then there's still outside of that one. So there's our item methods. So they're going to return from here. So if the path is the drive, then they're going to go. If the path is a table, they're going to get the table info. They're going to get a table, and then they're going to write the item object. So maybe I should go figure out what write item object is first before I start making assumptions. Commandlet provider write item object. Writing an item provider. This is expecting an object. Let's see. So if I give it an array, will it write an array? Because it's an object. I mean, an array is still an object. It's not an array of objects, however. So, okay, get item. It's called by the PowerShell engine when the user calls the get item command on your provider. The method returns the item at the specified path. In the access example, the method checks whether the item is the drive itself, a table in the database, or a row in the database. Sends it to the PowerShell engine by calling the write item object. What's the stars for at the end there, the asterisk. So I guess we should go look and see what get table returns in their example, because if get table returns an array of table, or no, but get row would return. These are individual items, so they're not containers. So perhaps that's why. So this is getting a specific item, right? Because these are item methods and not container methods. But I guess you need items in order to have items in a container. Maybe I guess my brain was thinking with the other direction, which is, well, we'd put into containers and then we would fill in the containers. But perhaps because all these are ultimately going to be containers anyway. I don't know. Okay. So what would we say here? So let's say, our first path is going to be users, right? And for users, we're going to return some number of users, right? So if you've written users, we have to get the ID of the user. So if the path is users, then we'd have to give a user. When we wouldn't give a user list, we would get a specific user by ID, and then we would write the item object. Write the item object, which is essentially a user, right? Some user. And this would be our graph user. Let me add that in here, by the way. .NET add package Microsoft .graph. Do we need beta? No, we don't need beta. Let's add the graph package here. See, that's what I think, Bolt. I think the path would be users whack ID. So maybe it would be if the path. So I almost feel like we need like a path parser, which I believe there is one, right? System IO path. Is it let's see. Parse? No. I thought there was a path parser, but maybe not. Path. Maybe I do a new path. Will that take in a string? And I don't know if I thought there was a path parsing thing, but that would essentially a generic path parser. Let's say like users, okay, whatever. But yeah, I don't think we can create a new path that way either, can we? We have to do like a path.join. Path.combine. Get file name. We could do. See, I don't know how well it's going to work with how well that would work with a thing here. A path root could possibly work. Relative path of relative to. Okay. So this would give us the relative path relative to the root. And this is root relative, right? So if our relative path, and we'll do a starts with users, and let's do I guess we do an ignore case, or we could do a culture, invariant culture, but so we'll tell it to ignore, and okay. String comparison, ordinal ignore case, cool. So if it starts with user, okay, so whatever this thing is, Copilot try. So if the relative path starts with users, what we could do then is do a user relative path, and that would get us the relative path of the user, right? And then we would write the item. This would actually give us our user ID, which would be the user relative path. I don't know what that is at the moment, but we'll say it's the user relative path. And then our item object, of course, we don't have any user objects yet, but that would be our user ID, right? If it doesn't start with users, we're essentially, I think, for the moment, just going to like bail and be like, sorry, we don't support anything but users right now. Thanks for playing, right? You're correct, Bolt, and that is true. I'm thinking about how we get the ID, and I think we get the ID this way, at least for now. I mean, it's kind of weird because we have to trust user input, but we're also running on the user's machine. So we could be like, well, look, if you're going to give us some bad data, we're going to like go delete some files or something. I don't know. Okay. So if the relative path relative to root is users, then you're trying to get to a user, and you're presumably going to give us an ID. And if you give us an ID, we're going to get that user. Go get that user info from graph, and then we're going to return it. But for the moment, of course, we're not going to worry about the graph implementation just yet. If not, thanks for following, Degs. If not, if the path doesn't start with users, then we're done, right? I mean, there's nothing to do here. So okay, so let's see what they're doing if there's nothing. If there's no data. Throw a terminating invalid path exception. Okay, don't really want to do that either. Although I guess maybe that's a PowerShell thing. Like maybe we throw exceptions for program flow in terminating invalid path exception. This might not even be there we go. I don't think this is, I didn't think that existed here. Let's see, is this in here somewhere? Did somebody make this themselves? Or is this I feel like I need to download this. Yeah, okay. Path must represent a table or row. So somebody built this, and they're actually throwing an argument exception. But let's throw a terminating, I guess we'll throw an argument exception, whatever. Throw argument exception. And we'll do it on path because that's apparently how you're supposed to do things. Okay, let me see if this builds. Okay, so it built. Now, there's essentially zero implementation in here, but we are returning a drive, right? So in theory, our drive should work. And in theory, if you give it a user ID, we should get a user ID back as one of the items. Right? So I'm going to go try to load this into PowerShell. Let's just see. We'll just see. So we did have instructions, which was cool. So let's go here. Let's go back. And let's see. Now, in order to use this, we have to import the module. Okay. So let me get my other, let's do this one instead. Let's clear. So in here, we've got our bin. We're going to do the debug release, .NET 6. And in here, we've got a pscoreprovider.dll. So in PowerShell, this is 725, import module, pscoreprovider.dll, (726). Okay, now clearly, system management automation. Okay, what am I? Version 725, I think. I mean, surely I could just use like 7.2 and that would be good enough for here, right? I mean, I don't think we're doing anything to. I mean, we could probably make that system management automation even. I don't think that's a compatibility level though. I don't know. All right. That seems strange, but whatever. Okay, import. It imported. Get PS provider. The giraffe provider's there. Get PS drive. Giraffe is there. Okay. CD giraffe. Is it new PS drive? I've completely forgotten. How did I do the environment earlier? Okay, that's what it was. Okay, so giraffe. I think we need to change our names. Okay, what are the names here? Giraffe. Okay. So how do I? We're gonna check. We're gonna check their check the names they gave their stuff really quickly. So the commandlet provider is called AccessDB. We're just gonna call ours Giraffe, right? Okay, I'm not using this. Now, how do you nail your drive name? We're doing that in our drive thing, right? So let's go to our drive. I'll get rid of all this junk. Okay. So the environment, so the new PS drive is going to be string name, provider info, the root, the description, and the PS credential. So we got our provider info. The name is giraffe. So would giraffe : not work here? Okay. Okay, so I'm back on my drive here. So get PS drive, and it's the name of it right there is giraffe, and the provider's giraffe provider, as we would expect. So then why, if I do a CD giraffe, can't find that path? Why can't it find that path? Because isn't this the thing, right? It's the name. Get PS drive. Can I do like verbose? No. Okay. Get PS drive. I guess if I did a new PS drive and then did a provider or PS provider of giraffe, and then I wonder if it's because we're not setting a root. The root would be giraffe, giraffe. Okay. Why doesn't that work? The root is right there. Remove PS drive. Name is giraffe. Okay. New. So what if I have a root of just giraffe? Oops. Let's give it a name of giraffe name. So I'm going to know what these different things are. Okay. So if I do giraffe, I don't understand this. Wouldn't be that, right? So the root. The root is giraffe, but it doesn't seem to work. So these roots are here, right? But see, but if you look at these don't have a root, right? And these are all the ones that we're kind of emulating a little bit. So these don't have roots. So let me get rid of that drive, PS drive, and the name is giraffe name or something stupid. Okay, so let's get PS drive. But looking at this, it even looks like it's already there. So if I do a get PS drive, and what if I gave it a name? And it's giraffe. Why do I feel like I'm missing something here? So we've imported our module. We ran get PS provider. We saw under provider. We saw get PS. We did a get PS drive. I haven't, but I didn't really change anything material in the code, Bolt. But you're right. Let me do that. Right. I wonder if I exit. What is it? Unload. Is there an unload or remove module? Giraffe provider. Maybe it's not there. Let's see. Okay. So let's go to our code, our PS provider, our PS core provider, our bin, our net6, our debug, our net6. Okay, import module. PS core. Oh, did I rebuild it? Let's just rebuild this to make sure. Okay. PS core provider.dll. So that's there. So get PS drive. There's a giraffe one. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, what the hell? Oh no. Oh no. What have we done? Current location. Oh, okay. That's just the current location of that one. So our giraffe provider is there. If we get PS drive, it's there. Get PS provider. Our giraffe one's there. Cool. So environment works that way, cd env colon, right? Okay. Hold up. So this is good. The provider type name of giraffe provider could not be found in the assembly. Good. So I didn't remove that module the first time, right? So get PS provider, remove PS provider. Get command and then all or something, and then we can what's the equivalent of a grep doing that in PowerShell? Module Get command all grep module. Well, how do I remove a module? Remove module. Okay, remove module ps giraffe provider. Oh, wait a minute. Is it called PS Core Provider? Oh, it is called that because that's the name of the assembly. PS Core Provider. What? Hold up. Let's see. Performing the operation remove. Okay. Could not load type SS1 ING. What on earth? Signing? Okay. Let's do this. Exit and PowerShell. And let's get our module again. And it's not there. So let's import our module again. And now get PS drive. Cool. And let's do a CD giraffe. Okay. Get PS drive. Get PS provider. Okay. But there's our drive, and it's called giraffe. So if I do like CD function, for example, okay, so that takes me to function. And if and if I do get PS drive, so let's import our module again. PS core provider .dll, get PS drive. CD giraffe is not going to work. Right, it's insanity to keep trying it. So for some reason, I can't set location, which I'm wondering is maybe because I haven't set location, perhaps? Set location to giraffe. Get location. Let's try that. Get location for PS drive of giraffe. Says that's the path. CD giraffe : / Can't set it because it doesn't exist. So if we do a set location to giraffe, it must be an implementation. It must be because we haven't implemented something. Sorry, I haven't implemented something. I don't blame any of you. The credentials, if no current user credential, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So the root. Okay, so the giraffe. Let's see. Let me just check these one more time. So we got the name, provider info, the string root. The root is empty, I suppose. The description. And the credential. Okay. So that's all cool. So then I'm assuming we must be throwing an exception. So we don't have any content, but that's fine because we're not looking for any content. So write the item object. That should be happening if we're hitting the root. But maybe we're saying that the root is not. Are we saying that the root? We're not setting a root though, so we shouldn't have to do any of this. So why doesn't set location work? Cannot find path because it does not exist. But yet, it says right here in our get location for PS provider giraffe. Okay, so it's got a provider, so maybe it's a literal path? don't know why it would be. Let me go back and look. I'm going to go back and look at this code really quickly and look at their drive initialization. How are they initializing their drive? So, if the drive is null, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Drive root. Okay. Let's go look at their drive info, right? So, access dbps drive info. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Get adapter for table, blah, 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 blah. There we go. Probably should have typed class access dbps drive info, huh? Okay, so it's really nothing in there. And then when are we creating a new one of these? New. Are we creating new ones anywhere? Okay, and that's got the drive info in it. So where is this coming from? PS drive info. Wait a minute. How is this getting called? PS drive info. Wait a minute. What? Oh, let's get item. Okay. Initialize the defaults. Do I have to do a new? But we've done a new drive and it doesn't work. So we've done a new PS drive. And we'll use PS provider giraffe provider. And we'll call this giraffe or whatever, right? And the root we'll call G2, I don't know. Okay, oh, it's just called giraffe, sorry. I'll call this giraffe. I'll call it G2. So G2? Is that where it goes? No. Giraffe? What? I don't get this. I don't understand this. So I think, I don't know. I guess I'm going to have to go figure this out. I'm going to read this code again. Because for whatever reason, this is not very helpful. PS drive info. I mean, what are the properties of this PS drive info? So drive is connection to remote machine, blah, blah, blah. Keep a handle of the connection. Okay, that makes sense. PS drive info. So when we create a new one, okay, so that's our drive info. That's fine, whatever. PS drive info. Name, provider info. Okay. All right. The string of the root. I mean, do I need to give this? I don't think I need to give this thing a root name, right? I'm going to do one more thing, and then I'm going to go because I'm hungry because it's time for lunch. And I've probably missed at least one meeting messing around doing this, but whatever. It's okay. This is more interesting than whatever that meeting may have been anyway. Oh, come on. Now, the other thing, I don't know if anyone here is using a Mac, but I have to say the passkey stuff is pretty neat. So let's see here. PS drive info and all of GitHub. 4,000 code results. Surely at least one of those should be useful for us, right? Zip is a folder. I'm almost certain that if we were to look hard enough, we could probably find a JSON drive provider that would do 99% of the work for us. We just have to provide it with JSON. So let's see. So this is setting the root to that, right? So maybe I need to have a root thing here, and I'll call it, giraffe, whack. I wouldn't think I'd have to do that. PS drive info. I mean, not to mention, I just created a new one and used I did a new PS drive, and the new PS drive is new PS drive. We gave it a root path, which we still couldn't change directory into. So I don't think that's it, but whatever. I'm down to try whatever. Okay, so we're going to remove the module of PS Core Provider, which is ours, and we're going to import the module of PS Core Provider.dll. Invalid assembly public key. Interesting. Wait, what? Okay, so just rebuilt that. 1310, that's right now, so import module PS Core Provider.dll. Invalid assembly public key. What? I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not feeling confident. Maybe I'm sad to say I think if we did this on a Windows machine, it might be okay because now it works fine. Maybe it's because the old public key was still cached somewhere, but even then, I don't think I'm not building with a different key anyway. Okay, get PS drive. So there's the root, graph : Now, we can skip the fact that literally all of these don't have roots, but yet I can still change directory into env. Now, why that's the case, I don't know. So let's try to go to graph. A drive with the name graph doesn't exist. I mean, it's literally right there. CD giraffe. Cannot find the path because it doesn't exist. Yeah, because this doesn't even make sense as a root, right? That doesn't even make sense. That literally makes no sense at all. That would never be a root. So yeah, it's the provider name, right? So let me just close PowerShell. I'm going to rebuild over here. I guess I don't have to. I can build it here. I don't know why I'm going over there. Oh, that's why. Okay, so we're going to build. And I'm going to import this module one more time. If it doesn't work this time, I got to figure out how to debug it. Let's see, PowerShell import module PS Core Provider.dll. It's there. Get PS drive. It's there. CD. I mean, this is what do they say about insanity? It's like doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different thing. I think my suspicion is that this is because we haven't implemented one of the container things. I'm sort of, kind of, maybe feeling like that's the problem because I guess if your root was empty, but you would think it would just return an empty root, right? You would think there'd be nothing, literally nothing there. So I guess maybe I'm not entirely sure why we would need a collection when implemented first. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe we do. PS drive, is it PS drive item? Or sorry, PS drive info. That's not correct. PS drive info. Somebody wrote a zip one for navigating through zips. Zip is folder. So thanks, Max. Let's go look at what you got going on here. So default drives, which we're doing, right? So we got that. It's a partial class though. What on earth? I haven't seen a partial class in 4,000 years. Are these all part? Oh, maybe. Oh, they're probably all split. That's a good call. So we got the drive, right? So this is where they're creating the drive. Remove new drive. Yeah. Blah blah blah. Turn-based new. Okay. Do we even? I don't think we have a new drive because I don't think we need one. Yeah, we don't because it's just calling the base anyway. Okay, zip is a folder. Zip is a folder provider. Okay, so this is a navigation commandlet and a content commandlet. Awesome, just like us. Get the provider, get context. Okay, this is all going to be so abstracted away that we'll dig through 4,000 files to find it. Somebody has surely written a bare bones simple one, right? I mean, I'm talking like stupid simple that even I can understand it. This is here's a custom storage provider, but that's PowerShell testing framework. GUI automation, Posh color. Let's try. Maybe we'll try Ethos 382s and just see. Oh, goodness gracious. I don't speak that language. Might be a problem. So there's a provider, storage device provider. Initialize default drives. Okay, wait a minute. So this is initialized as default. Okay. Okay. So new get child name. Do I need to have all those? No, surely not. Because this is just writing logs. This is what I'm wondering though. Is like, is one of these getting called? Maybe I need to read about the execution like pathways for these modules. Well, I think I'm gonna go get some lunch because it's like 1 something here. I'm getting a little hungry. And do I have a meeting right now? I'm supposed to be in. No, I don't have a meeting until 2 o'clock. So technically, you guys can get me for another 43 minutes. Not that you would want to, but we could. Oh, let's see. Okay, let me start up here. So that's an item provider. Let's look at the provider quick start. Even though it's deprecated, maybe it'll still work. Okay, I guess we should have started here earlier. Okay, so we've got our project, right? This is what we were using earlier. Okay. That does the import module. Declaring the provider, so we've done that. Okay. Implementing new drive. I don't think we did that because we're doing a default drive. So when a user calls the new PS drive commandlet, right? And we're not calling that. I just want it to be there at the very beginning. I don't want to have to implement a second one myself, right? And then use the constructor of the internal class access to create a new drive. Okay, fine. Cool. And then this is the drive, which all it's doing is it has this extra ODBC connection on here, which is fine. And then there's a remove drive, okay, which we're like, who needs to remove it, right? Maybe it's is it the navigation one that we're missing, and that's why it doesn't even let us like do the thing? Although you think it'd be a different error message. That's what I think anyway. So is item container. Checks whether an item at a specified path is a container. So if it's the drive, okay, so is item container. This looks like a good one for us to have. I don't actually know which one we're going to be overriding that, right? This must be a container thing, so override rule is item container, and basically, if now I understand why they have the path as drive thing so frequently, because yeah, we're probably going to end up typing that a whole lot, aren't we? Maybe it's because it's valid path. We should probably figure out a way to debug this. We can attach to it and see just what exactly is going on. Okay, so if this is happening, then yeah, this is true. Otherwise, Otherwise, just yeah, do the base because I don't know what the base would do here. Surely that's not the only reason it's blowing up though. And then GCN, get child names. Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe it's just one of these things that you can't like incrementally build. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's something that has to be built in a certain, like you have to just have like broad coverage for it to work. Although maybe I don't know. Let's go back to this code for a minute. SDK3 sample 1 had just the drive info, right? Actually, even had that. It literally was a provider with nothing else in it. Okay, so let's go to number 2 now. Number 2 just has the drives, right? So this is new drive and remove drive, and then our drive info. Okay. So let's go to number 3. Let's see what they did for number 3. Now the other question would be, if we were to take this and try to build it, would we be able to take the sample and build it? And that's what I'm not entirely sure about. So now we have our Access DB provider as an item commandlet provider. I wonder if it's because we're not, because we've already done navigation. We're saying, hey, we're a navigation commandlet provider and we're a content commandlet provider because we're really not capable of doing either one of those yet, if that's part of why it's blowing up. So this is our item commandlet. So I guess, what should we do? What should we do? Part of me thinks we should just split this into a bunch of files. Or roll back a little bit and do, say, for example, like if we go back to number, let's see, this is the item commandlet provider. If we go back to, say, number 2, which is literally the drive, can we at least get the drive to work, right? So let me see. Let's do I'm going to do this. Drive commandlet provider, and we're not going to be a content commandlet provider anymore. And then essentially I'm going to remove any of our drive overrides, right? Including this, okay. And then initialize default drives. That is part of the drive one. Okay. So this should build, right? Okay. Import module, PS core provider, get PS drive. Okay. Bam. So we're on to something. Provider methods not processed because the container commandlet provider methods are not supported by this provider. Okay. So that means that it at least can see the correct name and the provider that it's linked to. So that would lead me to believe that the container commandlets are the next ones that we really need to implement. But I'm also thinking that it's probably a naive interpretation of this. And then reality, we should do the item ones next, right? Because the item ones are ultimately the thing, because our containers are items, right? So here's number 3. This is the item provider. So move this one back to item commandlet provider. Now we've got a bunch of new stuff to implement, which that's a content commandlet. So let's do this. Now I understand why that other guy had a protected or had a partial class. Okay. So it looks like is valid path might actually be the only thing. That might be the only addition that. Oh no, here are the item methods. So there's get item. So get item. Set item. I don't even think we need to implement a set item just yet. An item exists. Is valid path. And then these are all helpers. Okay. So we have 4 things to implement. We've got our is valid path. These are item commandlet providers. Okay. And the region. So here we're going to have item exists. Thank you, Copilot. Get item. Hello. Get child items. I don't think that was correct. And then we're not going to do set item because I don't care about setting items because we're not going to be setting items yet, right? Okay. So we got these 3. Is a valid path always going to be true? Because why not? Item exists, always true. Get item. Now, here's where I believe we could take our little hyper rudimentary path parser from up here and see if we can't do something with this. So let's go grab that. Which means I'm also pretty confident that we're going to need some sort of centralized path parsing. Which, oh goodness gracious. KU, there we go. Okay, so if it's the root, we're just going to send back the root. Relative path, yeah. Okay, all that looks good. Cool, okay. So I think we have enough. We should have enough to at least, well, no, because we need the container methods to mount the drive, right? 151, where do you see 151? Oh, yeah, good call. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so container commandlet's still out there, but so if I was to do a get item on a certain, so what if I had my path was giraffe users 1, 2, 3. Okay, so container commandlet provider methods are not supported by these, cannot retrieve dynamic parameters for the commandlet. Provider methods are not processed because the container commandlet provider methods are not supported. So we still don't have those in there, is essentially what I'm hearing, is that we still have to have these container ones. So let's go to sample number 4 and see what are they implementing for that. This is container commandlet provider. Okay, so let's be a container commandlet provider. Okay, I feel like all these like all of these inherit from like each other, like they get more and more functionality as time goes on. Okay, so those are our drive things. Item methods, we've got our item methods. So let's find the next region to our container methods. Unless container overloads. Okay, so here we've got, let's see, let's get down here. Let's do another region. Let's start with the one that I can see. Protected override, void, get child items. Okay. Get child names. Of course, we should have these in here. Get child names. Okay. Ooh, now that get child names dynamic parameters, that looks pretty interesting. I think that might be a better way than us parsing our things rather silly and rather rudimentarily. Rudimentarily? I don't know. You tell me what you think. And then we have a bool of has child items. Of course, it's always going to be true. It's like Gilead. Okay, and then new items. We're not doing any news because I'm not creating any new. I'm not going to create any new items just yet. So, get child items and get child names. I mean, in theory, okay, it's all right. Oop, uh-oh. Unreachable code detected. Oh, yeah, because there's a return down here in there. Okay, let's build. Let's cancel this. Let's exit. I wonder if I did that. Let's exit PowerShell. We're going to open it up again. We're going to import the module again. And it's pscore provider.dll. We should have, maybe what we should have done is written a fuse provider instead. Then we can navigate it in our Mac and our Linux and everything else. Okay, get PS drive. There's our graph. So if I was to do a giraffe now, oh, hello. No, that doesn't make any sense because, okay, provider doesn't support get child item. Okay. So if path equals, if the path is the PS drive root, right, then we're literally going to return, right? We don't return items though. We, oh my goodness. Look at, I think Copilot has this figured out. Look at that. That is glorious. Bam. Hello. Okay. Now, I hope that we don't have this much code duplication in the future, but that's okay. Ship it. That's right. Okay. Let's exit PowerShell. Oh no, something's being. It's in use by another process. Okay, we're going to import our module. We're going to CD to giraffe. Oh, we got somewhere though. User, So it's because this base is still here. You don't actually need the base. Okay, so then can I change directory to get? Okay. I shouldn't have that. All right, so if I do a get item users 1, 2, 3, the path is empty. Interesting. Okay, though. Okay. So get the relative path to the root. So I can't change to users because the path doesn't exist. So I don't know how we would, so somewhere in here, maybe it's the get child names. Whatever get child names is relative to get child objects. Because I don't want to have to re-implement, literally having to do a re-implementation for every single one of those seems, quite honestly, it seems a little silly. I can't imagine that's correct. So, all right. CD giraffe. Yeah, so there's still something about that I don't like. I don't understand that part. They're right there. The items are there. So why wouldn't they be considered a valid path? Giraffe users? Maybe it's because there's a slash? Because, if we do a dir, they're right there. So where... Maybe they're not right. Oh, Maybe they're containers. Return containers. Is this an array? What is this? What is this object? This enum determines which types of containers are returned from some of the provider methods. Oh, so return containers dot. Oh, for whatever reason, this enum doesn't seem to want to. Okay, whatever. So get child items and get child names. Come look over here really quickly. Get child items. Okay. So for each write an item object, okay, and then it goes and calls itself. Okay, so there's get child items, right? So for each table, I'm going to write out a table object. Okay. And then get child names. Yeah, that implementation looks fairly similar to the other one. Okay. Has child items. Okay. Yeah, I mean, so I wonder what is, something is saying that we don't have anything. But I wonder if it's because we're not navigating yet, because we can't navigate, because we haven't done any of the navigation stuff yet. We haven't implemented any of the navigation like property stuff, right? So let me go back. So this is sample number 4, and sample 4 does the container commandlet stuff. Let me go look at sample number 5. Whoever wrote this sample is probably like, yeah, you jack. If you had just done this in the first place, Sean Wheeler, he's probably like, yeah, if you would have just gone through this in the first place, you would have saved everybody hours of time. And he's probably correct in that assessment. Okay, navigation commandlet provider. So I'm assuming we have a region called navigation. Yes, okay. Cool. All right, so let's go up here. Navigation. We're getting there, J. Steph. I know you had to leave for bed. It's cool, but we're getting there. We're super close. We got our container stuff. Let's see. We got our last bit here, which is our navigation properties region. Let's see. We'll call this navigation commandlet overrides in the region. And so we've got, in here, we're going to have is item container we are going to have, let's see, probably all of the get child items would be my assumptions. Let's see. They have to implement is an item container. Get child name makes sense, okay. Get child name, okay. Get child items, I'm assuming is probably going to be next. Get parent path, okay. Oh, maybe it's not there anymore. Override. Get parent path, cool. Let's see, what else are we doing? At a minimum, make path. Now that's a new one. I don't know if I recall that one. Override. That's a string called make path. Okay. Seems kind of, I guess if you wanted to override how you would build that path string, I guess that's how you do it. Normalize a relative path. Okay. We'll do that one. We're actually going to have to, I don't think we're necessarily going to have to do all of these. Normalize a relative path. I'm hopeful that we do not. I just want them so that we can keep it going. Now move, we're not going to move items. And that's the end of navigation. Nice. Cool. Okay. So, and interestingly enough, we don't actually use get child items, which I'm not entirely certain is going to be a good thing or a bad thing, but let's go see what we can get now. So exit. Did we build our new assembly? I think we did. Now, is the item a container? Now, ultimately, I'd say almost everything is a container. But we'll say for the moment, if it's the root, of course, if it's the root, it's a container. And if it is one of our first levels, right, our users, our apps, our whatever. So let's go get that, which we should definitely move over into another chunk of code somewhere that we can just call on a call as we need it, because clearly we're going to be using it quite a bit. And then I'm just going to grab this for the moment. So if it's the root, or then we're going to return true. If it starts with users, then we're also just going to essentially return true. I guess we could also do this really easily and just do like, or the path is users app registration. Now, surely we'd have to concat the path and the root together would be my guess, but whatever, I'll keep it for a moment and see. I don't think it would be that like smart or whatever. But I guess we can return the base here instead. Since whatever, I don't really know what the base is going to be doing. Oh no, I lost my place. So we'll return true, otherwise we'll return the base. Let's see how that goes. And then if this works, I'm going to leave because I'm going to go eat some lunch. I'm a little hungry. Okay. Import module, Peace Core provider, DLL, CD giraffe. Can't do any. Oh, well, users is there. Interesting. Okay. So I can get to the users folder because, of course, we essentially explicitly added the users folder. So that's good. So now it's a matter of we get the child names, and getting the child names means querying the graph, right? So I'm not completely like disappointed in this. You may be, and I completely understand. I'm actually not too disappointed right now. I'm feeling like this is it's one of those things that simultaneously is way further than I expected we would get once I understood the size of the thing that we decided that we were going to go off and do. I think that's the big difference. I had hoped this was going to be stupidly simple, but it turns out, like most things, it's not. Okay, anyway, I'm going to get some lunch because I'm really hungry because we've been doing this for quite a while. Who do we want to go and raid today? I guess, obligatory. Come and do the Discord thing with us. We have one. You should go join it. aka.mswack45 showwack. Join. Hello, Rita from Berlin. Glad you're here. I'm going to get some lunch. The Discord link is in the chat. The Discord link is also on the screen. I'm out there. Shannon's out there, my partner in crime. Some of our friends are out there. Bolt, a lot of our community members are out there. And we have more and more and more people coming every day from both inside the identity group at Microsoft and also outside, all of you fun people coming and hanging out with us. So be sure to go and join our Discord. Let's find someone to raid. Rita, I hate that you just arrived because we are literally wrapping up at this moment as we speak, but that's okay. So let's go to, let's see, we go to Visual Studio. I don't know what they're doing. In fact, let's go look and see what these folks are doing, because if somebody's like doing something they're not going to notice, then I don't think we should go there. So we've got, let's see what Visual Studio is doing, since they're our friends. Visual Studio, what are they doing today? The .NET Maui community stand-up. See, I feel like we'd just be interrupting them, and they'd be like, so what, you know? Because that's like interfaces and stuff, and I'm terrible at those. We could go see what Mr. Lingstorf is up to, or RWX Rob, although I think he's usually streaming. I don't know if he's live active streaming today. I don't really want to look at ads. Amazon, thank you. 2 ads? No, I'm not watching 2 ads. Hold up now. I hope all you didn't have to watch an ad. I wish that we could make it so that you don't have to watch ads to watch us, but I think you have to, which is kind of a bummer. So he's doing Kubernetes and Cube ADM, admin, I guess. Building a Linux home labs. That's kind of cool. And then the other people, let's see who else we got. Code Rush. And of course, if anybody has a suggestion, feel free to put it in the chat, and we will go raid your friends of choice. The Primogen. All right, let's go over to the Primogen and see if the Primogen's busy. We've got Code Rush here, another one of our friends. Bolt, I will ping you later and ask you how I can do that. So the Primogen has 770 people watching, so we're going to go over to the Primogen and see what's shaking. Thanks for coming, as always. We will be back next Thursday. Next Thursday, we're going to have a guest with us, a good friend of mine, someone who's been around with us for a long time. We're going to be looking at ARM templates for ADFS labs and Connect Health and all this sort of silliness. That will be next Thursday. And hopefully maybe we can catch back up and close the loop on some of this and get back to work a little bit on our PowerShell provider so that I can go back and tell this guy, hey, I got a way for you to delete all 3 million of your users that are in your thing. So we're going to go over to Primogen to go raid. I will see you next week. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us. Be sure you join our Discord. Stay close. Stay salty. See you next week. Later on, everybody. Bye.